Okay, we are in Acts chapter 19. We've been here for quite a while. We're going to be here until we get her done. We start off, of course, talking about the events of Acts leading up to the Acts. Acts, of course, is the history of the church and how it grew in the first century. And we always begin with Palm Sunday, the Last Supper, the Passion of Jesus, his betrayal, arrest, his trial, his crucifixion, his resurrection. This thing is going way too fast. I'm sorry. His ascension, and then we get into Acts itself with Pentecost, where you have the first miracles of the disciples going out and being able to speak to people in their own languages. We have the healing of the lame man at the Beautiful Gate being used and as an affirmation of the gospel message. Peter and John are arrested. Stephen was martyred. Philip goes to Samaria and Gaza. Then you have the conversion of Paul on his road to Damascus. And the thing with the conversion of Paul, this is what a lot of people sometimes forget about Paul. Paul was one of the biggest persecutors of the new Christian faith. And his zealotry is unrivaled, almost unrivaled by anybody in Christian history up to this point, towards stamping out this heresy that he considered was a heresy. And for him to be converted had to take some type of miraculous action. Something had to happen in order to get somebody to, when you think about that, it'd be like you becoming a communist. Something would have to happen miraculously in order to change your worldview that radically. And that's what happened to Paul. Something happened, and that was his encounter with Christ on the road to Damascus. We had Peter's vision of clean and unclean animals, and then you had the dispute over the Gentiles coming into the Christian church because of the Jewish admonition against Gentiles, period, dealing with them. Then we had Peter being delivered from prison. They're praying for him, and then all of a sudden he shows up and like, what are you doing here? He goes, you guys prayed to get me out. Then you have the first missionary journey, the end of the first missionary journey, the Jerusalem Council talking about the requirement of following the Mosaic law for the Gentiles. Then you have the split between Paul and Barnabas over John Mark. And then Timothy joins the second missionary trip along with Luke. I should put Luke in there too. I'll get to it next week, hopefully. And then you have Christianity reaching Europe. And what we're going to be talking about today is Paul going back to Europe, if we get there. Paul goes to Athens, disputes with the Athenians there, the Stoics and the Epicureans. And with this, which is kind of neat, is you have that chapter 17 where he does this. You have him engaging with what we would call the wizards of smart, and basically showing them how error filled their tautology is. Okay, then the end of the second missionary journey, the beginning of the third missionary journey is where we are at. Let me see if I can. Okay, and then Paul goes back to Ephesus, and he's back in Ephesus for 2 years. Now, when we look where Ephesus is, come on, please. There. He starts here in Antioch, travels along southern Asia Minor, and then gets to Ephesus, which is right here, a port city. And he's there for 2 years, and he's preaching. And that's where we're basically leaving off in Ephesus. He does travel to Macedonia, which is current-day Greece, and we'll be talking about when we get to those verses. Okay, so we left on verse 15 where it says, "But the evil spirit answered him, 'Jesus I know, and Paul I recognize, but who are you?'" So here is a demon-possessed man, and you have these kids of a Jewish elder asking to cast out demons in the name of the Jesus whom Paul preaches. And by saying this, you can see that demons, they're aware of the alignments of heaven, of kingdom alignments. And notice it says, who are you? And this is kind of a contemptual way to say, well, Paul I know. It says, Paul I know, Paul I recognize, but who are you? Why would they recognize Paul? Well, they would recognize Paul because Paul knows Jesus Christ. Paul is preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. These guys are only saying, well, I'm going to cast you out in the name of the Jesus whom Paul preaches. They don't know Jesus Christ, so therefore they are incapable of casting out this demon. And he exposes them by just basically mocking them. Let's go. Okay, so this elevates Paul by doing this. All right, verse 16. And the man in whom was the evil spirit leaped on them, mastered all of them, and overpowered them, so that they fled out of the house naked and wounded. And that's something you can't unsee. I mean, just thinking about this. So here you have this guy that he is demon-possessed, and I think there's 7 of them, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to go back and look, but I think that there's 7 of them. So he gives them, all 7 of these guys, a beat down, strips them of their clothes, and kicks them out of their house. Now, if you're running around town, you've already gotten beat up, so you're bruised, you're bloodied, and you're naked. What greater humiliation? Oh, there it is. It's the 7 sons. There we go. Okay, so this man who was indwelt, he attacks the 7 sons and gives them this beating. And it says that they were overpowered. Now there you have, this illustrates the existence of not just natural power, the power of one man, but the supernatural power that exists in these demons. I'm sorry, this has got to be fixed. We're going to have to fix this somehow. They are further humiliated by getting stripped. Yeah, okay, so their ultimate humiliation of these 7 people is by stripping them of their clothes and then sending them out to be humiliated among the people. Verse 17. And this became known to all the residents of Ephesus. So once these guys got beaten up by this one guy, stripped of all of their clothes, sent out of the hall that they were in naked, everybody in town knows what happened to these guys. So they're walking around town in the future, thinking, okay, well, you're the guy that got beat up, stripped of your clothes, and you were kicked out of the house by this one dude. And it says both Jews and Greeks, they knew this, and the fear fell upon all of them, and the name of the Lord of Jesus was extolled. So the news of the humiliation goes around the entire town, and their humiliation becomes very well known. And here you have this reverential awe that people would have for somebody who is